What is up, guys? This is MaxCo4, and today we're going to be looking at Company of Heroes Eastern Front. There was just a huge update to 3.0 of Eastern Front. Now everything has changed quite a bit, so I'm going to give you an overview of the Soviet faction, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to best play them and what all counters what, essentially. Alright, so we're going to go through the basics first, all the base buildings, and what all they produce. Alright, so you start off with one Engineering, which is your mainline infantry, and you start with your HQ, which has Engineering, Conscripts, your baseline infantry to start with, Observer teams, which are good for catching snipers, and they can recon pretty well, and of course your medical truck, which you can build multiple of. Keep in mind for games that you want to play Outpost heavy. We'll talk about that later. Next we have Tier 1, which has to come out immediately. Then you have to build your Armory, which unlocks your Strelky. After the Armory, you can go Tier 3 after the Armory, you can go Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 4, any of these three. Second one provides more support weapons and your command squad, along with the armored car. Tier 3 gets your light vehicles like these, and Tier 4 gives you your heavy vehicles, and then, of course, your IS-2 heavy tank, Alright, so let's start from the top, okay? You start with your Engineering squad. These guys are very good up close. So, I mean, very good early game. Like, they're not going to go up against your mainline infantry that are, like, MP44s. They're going to get destroyed pretty bad. But one or two of these guys can actually gang up on a Lancer squad and beat them, or a Volksgrenadier squad from Wehrmacht. So, these guys can be formidable up close. And there is certain doctrines, I believe it's urban. They have a Street Fighter ability, which gives Engineering body armor, so it makes them a little bit better, which is pretty cool. Alright, so what all you can do with these guys? Build your typical outposts on your points to get more fuel and whatnot. Barbed wire, sandbags, tank traps. People just don't use these enough. Make sure in games that you're using the barbed wire to wire off heavy cover, because it certainly helps you win engagements later on. Additionally, you have your normal mines, which you got to build on all those choke points, like you do, and you should. MG dugouts, which are just like the base MGs. You can just build them anywhere. Sometimes situational can be good, especially defending your fuels. Anti-tank mines, which are unlocked in a ability that I will talk about in the Armory in a little bit later. Then 85mm, which is pretty much like the 88 for the Wehrmacht, which is unlocked with, I believe, Urban Combat as well. Urban Combat's full of nice goodies. Next, you have your Observer squad, which is a two-man team with pistols. Pretty badass. They can go camouflage, though, and sneak around, hold fire. Early game, these guys are actually kind of badass. If you can sneak them up to Pioneers or Stern Pioneers from the starting infantry from Wehrmacht or Oster and attack, they can do some significant damage, especially if you use them to flank like a Lancer squad as you're fighting with the Conscript squad. They can change the outcome quite significantly. These guys additionally have where they can throw flares. This can reveal snipers. So you think there's a sniper there? Throw a flare. It's going to reveal all camouflage units in this area, which is pretty cool. Like a free ability, so it's nice to counter snipers, of course. This is their scout unit as well. You can give them the SV240 rifle package. This means they won't be good up close anymore. They will be good at more just picking off units. Somewhat good against units in buildings, but picking off units from range is where they excel at. An additional thing that they have is fire discipline, which if you have any mortars, which we have a mortar in the field, you can simply call this in for free. Say you have somebody in this building, but your mortar's on the other side of the map. He can just outrange his normal range, turns around, and starts bombarding this. This is an imaginary round. And it just gives you a simple mortar bombardment on this area. Let's see if he actually hits the building. How accurate is this? Very inaccurate. That's fine. I believe they fire a few shells. They'll start hitting the building or hitting around the building. Yeah, there they go. See? Taking off some pieces. Pretty cool ability. Make sure you use this guy. He's very good at capping territory as well, so you need somebody to cap really fast. He's effective. Late game, it's usually good to park him in like a corner in a bush or over here and take advantage of his view, because he can view for artillery and whatnot. Sneak him over here inside their base. Call in a sneaky artillery strike. Pretty awesome. Get your opponent to rage and profit. Pretty awesome. Alright, conscripts were reworked a little bit. This iteration, they now all have rifles, which is pretty dope because before they didn't. And now the game's set in 1944, when the Soviets had better logistics anyways, so it makes sense that they all have rifles now. So they're effective mainly as a defensive team. They can also put tank traps and barbed wire, so make sure you take advantage of that for when they're idle. You push off the enemy, lay some barbed wire. In addition to being able to lay wire, they can put outposts out, which outposts upgrade 50 with 50 munitions. It gives them a slight health boost, I think, and actually it might not give them a health boost, but it gives them the ability to reinforce, which is pretty awesome if you have points like this that you think you can hold, and it gives you your units not as far to retreat. Get another one of these medical trucks up there, and you can straight profit, especially in team games. Then additionally, they can get DP light machine guns, which helps them scale quite a bit into the mid to late game, especially if you get some veterancy. They can actually get 2 of them too, so they can actually defeat Lancers and Volksgrenadiers quite effectively with those. However, they are not good infantry for attacking. They're mainly good for defending. So if you see a squad and you run at them, Lancers run up the Conscripts. Conscripts are going to get shredded almost every time. Same with Volksgrenadiers. You run up to them, unless they have lower health, most likely you're going to lose. So use them defensively. Once you get this DP and some veterancy, it'll start being extremely effective. In addition, this squad has a VPGS anti-tank grenade. This is unlocked as soon as you get the Armory. Gives you at least a little bit of anti-tank defense. It's pretty cool. Very effective versus Kuba wagons or Schwinn wagons, bikes. So you can almost one-shot them, which is pretty dope. So you can chase away enemy vehicles, especially if they're trying to push you out of cover. Very effective. Additionally, you have Molotov cocktails, which are unlocked in the base. These are very good for pushing enemy units out of cover. They're not like a grenade though, so they linger for a little while, so you won't be able to use that cover either. Conscripts, I usually like to get between 2 and 3 of them, depending on my playstyle. I wouldn't advise getting any more than that, because eventually you do want to move on to better infantry like Strelki, but they can be valuable as defensive infantry even in the late game. Alright, moving on to, let's see, the Armory. Let's go straight to the Armory, because that's the next building you build. Oh, excuse me. Not the Armory. Tier 1. Tier 1. Alright, so first off we have the Sniper. Pretty much a basic sniper. Just like everything you've seen in Company Heroes. He's got a semi-automatic rifle. He looks angry, ready to kill. This guy is definitely going to fuck up some Germans. So you definitely want to put him out there, get him killing some Germans. Snipers take a little bit longer to engage in the first shot now. So we've slightly nerfed them. But they're still very effective. I use them all the time and they work great. This unit I would recommend not building until you have a decent little bit of baseline infantry. Soviet SG-43 heavy machine gun. This unit is a must-have in your army. I almost always use the SG-43 heavy machine gun. This thing's a beast. It's only second to the MG-42 suppression, I think. Suppresses very well, not super quick like the first engagement like the MG-42, but in the first few bursts this thing will get infantry suppressed. One thing makes it better than the MG-42 in my opinion is it does do way more damage. It can obliterate a squad like right here. MG-42 would be suppressing the hell out of it, and they wouldn't be able to move, but it wouldn't do much damage. This thing will tear them apart, so definitely a favorite of my having this in my army. I usually get 1, sometimes I get 2. Wouldn't usually go over 2, so just for this, make sure you're always using it. Don't just place it in a building and then fight over here. Make sure you're actually moving it up with your army, because it can be very decisive in engagements, especially early on. Next unit is your Strelki, which costs 320. They're more in your baseline infantry. By the end of the game, you should have 1 to 2 of these if you're not using doctrinal infantry. Strelki are unlocked as soon as you build the Armory. So you build this Armory, then they become unlocked in Tier 1. Strelki are pretty much your standard infantry. They're kind of like Grenadiers for Wehrmacht. They're better. They have a semi-automatic rifle and then all bolt actions, but they're better trained and they perform a lot better. Right off the bat, they already come equipped with the grenades, so they're very shock units. They can push infantry out of cover, and they can usually one-up Lancers. They do cost a little bit more, so it does make sense. Also, they have more upgrades. They can get the anti-tank rifles, which are very effective versus light vehicles, and for medium vehicles you can even do an ability called target weak points where you can target the treads and exhaust system, and sometimes you can disable main gun, sometimes you can destroy the treads, immobilize the gun, immobilize the tank, and then take out the gun as well. So very effective. So you definitely do at least want to have one of those squads if you don't have any dedicated anti-tank. So if you also go here and upgrade to Shock Strelky, makes your Strelky a little bit beefier and gives them ability to have the PPSHs. This gives all 6 of them PPSHs and makes them almost your best assault infantry in the game. It's pretty crazy how good they are, especially with some veterancy. Maybe that's an overstatement, them being the best in the game, but they're definitely top tier, and I love using them, so they're very good at pushing infantry out. They'll make your Lancer engagements go very, very well, especially if it's a one-on-one. You can simply push the Lancers around. Alright, that's all for Tier 1. Saying that, let's see, they can also build barbed wire, so make sure you use that. They don't have tank traps, but they do have barbed wire, so make sure you take well advantage of that. That almost all Soviet infantry can build barbed wire to defend themselves from heavy cover. Defend the heavy cover from being used by the enemy. Alright, next item will be the Armory. The Soviet Armory is a requirement for the Strelky and to tier up to Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 4. The Armory comes with several upgrades. This is one of my favorites. Is improved logistics, reduces your upkeep by 25%, which is pretty cool, and it generally just makes it a lot easier to get more manpower out, especially in the late game. So it's generally a good one to get once you have a stable army, but you want to make reinforcing a lot easier. Men against tanks, like I said, it gives you anti-tank rifles on these dudes, these Strelky that you can upgrade on, and it also gives you engineering and partisans. And naval infantry can lay anti-tank mines, which often immobilize tanks or give them a damaged engine at least. Pretty awesome. Your infantry won't set these off. You set them these at a choke point instead of these mines, and they'll take infantry running right over it, and vehicles will get destroyed by it. Pretty amazing mine. Costs a little bit more, but definitely worth it. After that, you have your solid Shock Strelky, which Shock Strelky allows your Strelky to be get additional hit points, and you can get the PPSH. So it's a must for PPSH. Once you get Shock Strelky, there will be a red star that appears above your Strelky, which is pretty interesting. Improved ammunition will make your Zis3 Anti-Tank Gun over here and your Su-76 perform quite a bit better on penetrating tanks, which is pretty awesome. We'll talk more about those two in the future. Also gives focus firing for the Zis, which is pretty much like the anti-tank gun ability for the Americans on theirs. Next we have Cage Armor, which is a must for late game. It gets your T-34s, Su-100s, and IS-2s ability to have Cage Armor. Cage Armor will definitely make your tanks less susceptible to Panzerschrecks, so it's pretty must needed ability. Alright, moving on to Tier 2. In Tier 2 we have the Command Squad, which the Command Squad, as soon as you get him, he reduces your upkeep, which is pretty awesome. And as soon as he gets Vet 1, 2, and 3, every Vet level gives you a little less upkeep as well. His abilities that he has is For the Motherland, which pretty much boosts all the infantry in his sector right here. It allows them to sprint and ignore enemy suppression, essentially. More susceptible to being hit, but you perform better, so it's pretty cool. Let's see if he gets activated. Might have to be in the sector when he started, unfortunately. But as you can see, this mortar is activated. Not sure if it really does anything for him. But it makes him suffer afterwards. Pretty cool little fire up ability, so you can get past machine gun bunkers and whatnot. In addition, you have a marked target ability, which essentially makes reduces their evasiveness against incoming fire and allows you to see them within the fog of war. Very good to use this on like a heavy tank like an elephant trying to get away with little health, and you can see him limping away and calling artillery to anticipate his escape path. So very effective, especially late game. Keep this dude alive. Gets a DP, makes him a lot better, and he's got this one dude that just carries around the flag aiming at people. Pretty cool squad, and you get a major. Pretty cool. Next, you have your mortar team. Classic mortar team has a little bit better range than the Wehrmacht one, so it's right off the bat very, Very cool mortar. As you can see, his range is almost all the way over here. Pretty badass little mortar. Combined with the observers, he can be very effective in that fire discipline. But just other than that, it's just a simple mortar. I recommend having them if you don't have any other indirect assets. Moving on to the next thing, we have the Zis3 Anti-Tank Gun. This anti-tank gun is probably one of the better in the game of all the other anti-tank guns. Infantry can get killed somewhat easily because of the heavy cover. Bonus doesn't seem to cover them as well as maybe the German anti-tank guns. But as soon as you get the Men Against Tanks upgrade, let's see. Oh, excuse me, improved ammunition. Allows this to get the APCR type rounds, and they greatly increases the damage it does. Already does pretty well damage against heavier tanks, which is pretty cool. And it has long range, as you can see. You can fire all the way over here. Pretty far range, just like most AT guns. He fires very well, and the AT gun does very well at its job in general. So I recommend having one or two of these late game, or if you go for a tier 2 strat, you'll always have them. Alright, so here we have our solid BA-64 squad. Excuse me, armored car. This thing is pretty awesome. Comes with just a light machine gun right off the bat. It's good for scouting and taking out enemy snipers. However, it can be upgraded with the Dishka machine gun, which gives it a lot better anti-infantry killing ability. And you can actually chase around infantry, kill weapons teams. So if you can get out one of these early, it can be devastating to the enemy. Just keep in mind that they cost fuel, so you have to be a little bit more conscious of your spending. You can't just pump these out like crazy. And there you go. A lot better machine gun, and can take out infantry quite a bit better. Overall, Tier 2 has a very solid arsenal, mainly support. These 3 units are support, and you get one. Let's see if the mortar can actually go in there. Mother of God. I might have just created a bug. Well, you have mobile mortars, which is pretty awesome. I wasn't aware of that. Looks like machine gun teams can go in there too. If you want to move your support weapons around, very, very nice feature. That's kind of cool. I don't know if that's supposed to be a thing, but we'll figure it out. It's all cool. Alright, Tier 3. Tier 3 is your light vehicles. It's generally what I like to do after the Armory. Tier 3 or Tier 4. Tier 2 is more defensive. Tier 3 and 4 feel more aggressive, especially to me. You have your T-60, which is like your anti-infantry tank. BT-7, which is anti-infantry and light vehicles. And then you have your Su-76, which is pretty much a mobile anti-tank gun. It's great for killing tanks, especially mediums and below. And late game, you can upgrade it with artillery ammunition, which makes it very much scalable. Alright, so BT-7, right off the bat, we'll start with it. It's a light tank. It's relatively fast, and it can escape most situations. It's very good for supporting your infantry, and it's much like a Greyhound, I would say. Pretty much a jack of all trades. You can get the upgun it, which makes it worse versus vehicles, but it'll start shredding infantry even better. So, pretty cool. It's like your probably like the average between these two tanks. It can somewhat take on light vehicles, but it's a little bit worse than the T-60 against infantry, in my opinion. Next we have the good old T-60. This thing is a beast and can get a tank crew commander for more sights. This thing can annihilate infantry, especially up close. You just have to be careful versus enemy tanks, and you have to be careful versus Shreks, because this thing can get annihilated by Shreks. Overall, it's a super fast firing gun, and you can obliterate infantry with it. Late game, it doesn't scale as well. You have to use it mainly behind your lines, but it's not bad in general. Here you have the BT-7A upgraded, as you can see. I think it has a 76mm short barrel, so it does quite effective versus infantry. But versus tanks, this thing's pretty much trash. Su-76, this is your answer versus tanks. It's relatively cheap. You can spam them. They'll die very quickly to anti-tank, to tanks, or infantry. But for at range, you can use these guys, and they will obliterate medium vehicles pretty quick. Also, again, the artillery ammunition for 100 makes this, once you get T-34s out or something else, makes this very good supporting unit, especially if you can go Tier 2 for mortars. You can just use this badass unit as one of your artillery units, and he has further range, I believe, than the mortar, and it's a lot more mobile, so he won't get killed off. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, and it sounds kind of badass. Enemies are wondering how you got artillery. He's not as looks kind of cool like artillery, but it's not as powerful as artillery. Still badass though. And once again, as soon as you fire him, I recommend moving him to a new position because enemy might try counter barrage or coming in with infantry to kill him. Alright, moving on to my favorite one. Here we have Tier 4, which includes your mainline tank, T-34-85. This tank is a badass. You can have infantry right on it. You can get a tank commander, which we're going to do right now. You can get a mine roller, which is a demining thing, so you can just literally have this on, build this on it, and never have to worry about mines again. It will make you significantly slower, so that's kind of a kick in the nuts for this tank, and you don't want that because this tank's very, very mobile. It's like the Sherman, but faster. So I'm very much a fan of the T-34. Very spammable. Only costs 75 fuel, so it's not too bad. It's like the Panzer IV, but I think it's a little bit better versus infantry. Let's see. Doesn't look like he's going to be using that flamethrower, but the flamethrower only comes out from the front, so make sure you position this tank if you're fighting infantry or garrisons. Flamethrower allows it to take out garrisons pretty effectively. Alright, next we have the SU-100. Used to be the SU-85, but now it's got a 100mm instead. Once again, give this one a tank commander. This one it's decent at sniping infantry, but it kind of lacks versus infantry in general, so this thing can get outflanked by infantry and killed. Be careful with him. Just use him as a mobile anti-tank unit. It's like the SU-76, but better armor, and so it can actually slug it out frontally with some tanks. But it can also take on the heavy tanks. This gun is very effective versus enemy tanks. It'll lose in a 1v1 duel with the Jagdpanzer IV from Oster, and I believe the Panther as well it will lose to, but it can do extremely effective damage. Basically, it's your best tank for countering heavies until the IS-2. With these two tanks, you'll have one that has very high range. As you can see, T-34 only has range to here, whereas this one I can literally fire my own bases. I guess it's doesn't seem super far. It's a little bit farther, but in the situations it definitely feels a lot better. So make sure you use this one's range as effectively as possible and be aggressive with the T-34 as possible. Alright, next we have the IS-2 upgrade, which is a breakthrough tank. IS-2 can handle pretty much any other tank in the game. I'll show you here in a little bit. Additionally, your Tier 4 has repair station, which gives it's like a pretty much like the Wehrmacht repair bunker. Pretty badass. You upgrade for 50 munitions, and now you can just park your tanks back here anytime you need reloads. As you can see, the T-34 is pretty slow with this mine roller, but keep in mind it's much better than the Sherman with its mine flail that has to literally like stops the tank. So if you are going to get one of these, I recommend getting it on one of your vehicles, and not if you have like 2 or 3 T-34s, get it on one so you can lead against, break through a trail, and then other ones can follow in behind. Very effective tank in general. And let's go ahead and talk more about the strategies, okay? So when I start, I usually like to get 1 or 2 conscripts, a machine gun, and sometimes a spotter. Use this as your mainline infantry, and your goal should be to get to Strelke as your second line infantry, and then your goal should also be to either go Tier 3 or to Tier 2 or a fast Tier 4. Tier 2 is a little bit safer because you have anti-tank that you can maneuver around the enemy. You have mortars to fire at indirect, and you can play a little bit more defensively. Get the little armored car to do some behind the lines actions, but overall it's a lot more defensive, and it's good, especially if you're behind and you don't have fuel for stuff. Get a solid anti-tank to push the enemy back. Tier 3 is more aggressive. If you're ahead, it's very effective to go this. Get a T-60 or BT-7, followed usually by a SU-76. You usually don't want to get more than one of these two tanks. SU-76 can be spammed a little bit. You can get like 2, sometimes 3 if you're feeling crazy. But I wouldn't get any more than that because This one also does not scale super great, at least not in numbers, because once a tiger or elephant or panthers start coming out on the field, this thing can get rolled up real quick. So no more than one of these, I would say. And if you do go for the T60, I wouldn't build the BT7, vice versa. Su-76, always a good choice. Then after that, you get some of these tanks out, you're eventually going to want to convert over to Tier 4. As you can see, Tier 4, there's the IS-2. This gives you your medium tank, your tank destroyer, and your heavy tank. IS-2 is a beast, costs 600 manpower and 135 munitions. Excuse me, 135 fuel. But that is quite a bit, and it's definitely worth it because he's essentially a weaker tiger, a little bit of a weaker tiger, but not by much. Especially with veterancy, he can become stronger than tigers. Let's go ahead and get those cage armor so I can show you all what it looks like. It's kind of badass on all these vehicles, makes them quite a bit more effective. Alright, here we have the monster of a tank, the IS-2. Has a 122mm cannon, heavy armor, and with the skirts it becomes very much less vulnerable to infantry anti-tank weapons. Additionally, you can get Dishka heavy machine gun on top, helps fend off infantry even better. This thing is going to be a beast. Late game, you're going to want to field one or two of these because they will help you break through the lines where the T-34 can't. T-34 cannot usually take much of a beating from heavier tanks like Tigers. This thing, however, can. So this is a great breakthrough tank. Very expensive, so be caution yourself with using it, and make sure you support the flanks because it is slow. Turret turns slow. Two Panzer IVs can easily outflank this, so unsupported this thing can die and be a very expensive mistake. But supported by T-34s and an AT gun or Su-76 covering its lines, this thing can be very effective. Great combination with the Su-100. Alright, so in general, I do that, conscript, machine gun, engineering, then move on to my good old Strelky. So maybe throw a sniper in there for some spice, go Tier 3, get a few vehicles, or rush straight to Tier 4 if I'm ahead and get T-34. Sometimes I'll backtech to Tier 3 just to get the Su-76 artillery, because it can be very much worth it. Additionally, I forgot to mention for the command squad, once you get a veterancy, you can go offensive or defensive, and if you choose offensive, then you get some offensive veterancy, offensive veterancy, you get offensive bonuses, which offensive bonuses will definitely help you doing better, like reloading and stuff, a little bit quicker. And defensive gives you like extra like health buffs and helps you guys operate in cover essentially, and it's just little good little bonuses. So getting him out early can definitely help, unless you go Tier 3 or 4 like me. So Tier 2 definitely has its benefits. Another thing to notice is when you're playing up a fort area, say I'm like really fighting over this, say it was a 2v2 and this is a point that I have but I'm struggling to hold on to it. Sometimes getting an outpost and then upgrading it for 50 munitions to a reinforce point and then buying an additional ambulance up here can make this a very good supporting area. I can fall back. If there's an enemy that doesn't have mortars or anything, then I can heal here and hold on to this position a lot easier because I can reinforce on the front line and he has to reinforce in his base. So it's a very effective thing to do, and make sure you guys are doing it. Alright, next thing I'm going to talk about is 3 commander selections. All 3 of them are very effective, so I will show you all 3 of them and then tell you my favorites. Propaganda is pretty cool. Comes with inspiring speech, which infantry in their own territory will fight more fiercely on activation. Receive suppression is nullified, and squads will move and fire faster, inflicting more suppression and receive less damage. Essentially, it's like the defensive doctrine for Wehrmacht. Let your guys fight more effectively and more defensively. So pretty cool, nice little ability. Next, you have partisans. Partisans are cool dudes. You can deploy them from buildings like just this tiny little shed if it's not occupied, or buildings around here. They can camouflage, get like little submachine guns and rifles, and you can use them to ambush light units or injured units and take them out. Additionally, once you get men against tanks, they have anti-tank grenades and can lay anti-mines behind lines. You can lay additional regular mines behind lines. Just keep in mind they will uncamouflage whenever you're doing this. Next, you have the wonderful Katushas rocket launchers. These guys are awesome. You get 1 at a time, up to 3. Guys are very effective, especially in high numbers. Can cause significant casualties on the enemy units, so make sure to use them as much as you can. The right side of this, we have Not One Step Back, which patriotic propaganda grants infantry combat capabilities in their own territory. So you get to basically inflict more suppression and damage and regenerate hit points. So similar to this one, it allows you to fight better in your own territory. Two very good abilities. Excuse me, this one is ability, and this one is just passive, I believe. So it helps you regenerate in your territory. Pretty cool little ability. Passive ability, and it's nice to have. Next one, we have the Stermovic Airstrike, which calls in a bunch of air assets, and they come in strafe and bomb the area. Very good versus excuse me, thinking of it wrong. It comes with anti-tank bombs, which are very effective versus vehicles, but they can damage infantry as well. If you see a bunch of infantry, I don't know if they're in a blob, it might be worth it, but generally you want to reserve this for tanks. Next, you have the KV-85, which is essentially a Soviet Panther. Has a T-34-85 gun, but it's a little bonus, and it also has heavy armor like the IS-2. So this thing is slower than T-34, but I'd say probably a little bit faster than the IS-2. So it's probably like a poor man's IS-2, I'd say. It's better than the IS-2 because it's faster, and its turret's definitely a lot faster, but it is a little less powerful. But you can, I believe, get two of them, so it's pretty cool to have this. If you didn't go tier 4 at all, you can just get a heavy tank regardless. Next, we have urban combat, which right off the bat, you have street fighters, which gives engineers and your weapon crews body armor, and engineers can plant demolition charges. So these nice little engineering, where they at? These guys get like different, they'll be a little darker uniforms because they have body armor on, and they can operate a little bit more effectively. So rushing like a few squads of these can be a lot better, and they can operate actually like mid to late game. So pretty cool little ability, and having demo charges is definitely cool. Can put one in a building. As soon as they put an MG in there, boom, gone. Next you have Naval Infantry. These guys are a 4-man squad. They have like elite armor, so they're pretty amazing at staying alive. They're okay versus infantry, and they can also get anti-tank rifles before you get this men against tanks. So it can be save it infantry for you if you need some quick anti-tank. They also have phosphorus grenades after you get your Molotov upgrade. And those grenades are very, very good. It's pretty much like a little napalm grenade. Next, you have the Steamroller, the classic KV-2 artillery tank. Essentially, this is a heavy-ass tank, about the same size as the IS-2, a little bit bigger. It can lob shells across the map, much like the Hummel. Only difference is this badass fires a little less rounds, but it is heavy. It does have heavier armor, so it can actually take a few more hits. Like you can ambush this with a few tanks, and it still might get away because it has heavy armor. So cool tank, and it's very effective at shelling the enemy. Next, you have Fortifications, which this gives your machine gun teams where are they at? Machine gun emplacements health boost in their overall health, and allows you to reinforce them around them, much like Outposts. So all of a sudden, having a machine gun up here, like maybe defending your fuel point or your strategic point, might not be such a bad idea. If you have one up here like this, seems normally it could be like not very supported. You can't support it very well because you have to fall back. But now you can reinforce off it, so it makes it extremely viable to do, which is cool in my opinion. Next, you have the 85mm AA gun. This thing is pretty badass, and it can take. It's pretty much a Soviet 88, and it's very effective versus armor. It can lock down huge areas, give you safe zones to operate. Works very well with the IS-2, because you can, or other heavy tanks like the SU-100. They can be easily flanked. You can cover their flanks, so you don't have to worry about getting flanked as much, because you can just kind of fall back to its area of influence and be safe. Next, you have the Incendiary Bombing, which is another IL-2 ground attack. Only thing different is this thing like napalmed, like this big of an area. Any weapon crews caught in the area are definitely gonna die. Good to drop this on little emplacements as well. If you can sneak one onto the base while they're healing, that's evil but effective. very effective at killing enemy infantry. Does light damage to tanks, but overall, infantry is the best thing for that one. Breakthrough. I'll go ahead and choose this one since I haven't chosen one yet. So right off the bat, you get shock guards, which these guys are kind of badass. They have like elite armor, and they have anti-tank grenades, they have regular frag grenades, and they have demo charges. Pretty badass, and they can also get PPSHs for 100 munitions. These guys have elite armor, so they're very effective, and once they get PPSHs, they're just like, they dominate at close range, and they'll definitely take out almost all infantry. It's pretty much the Soviets' best infantry in the game, especially with veterancy. You can take out anything on the Austria Wehrmacht side pretty effective. Next, you have large-scale assault, which infantry will sprint, capture faster, and while vehicles drive at full speed into enemy lines, the Axis abilities and mini-maps are disabled. So, Axis can't use any of these, and their map goes like upside down and dark. It's pretty fucking awesome. I love this ability. This is very unique. I haven't seen anything like this before in Company Heroes, and it's a super cool ability, and if you can conduct it with your teammates to attack while you're using this ability, it's extremely effective. Makes your IS-2 actually a lot faster. You can notice it's moving almost the same speed as a T-34. Doesn't seem to affect your medium tanks, but it definitely, your light tanks, but it definitely affects your heavies. Makes it much easier to break through, which is pretty badass. And the whole time the Axis can't even see their mini-map. It's like confusing unless they go to their main tactical map. Pretty badass in my opinion. Next you have the ISU-152 heavy tank destroyer. This thing is like a fucking beast. As you can see, it's got a huge ass gun, 152mm. You can get a Dishka heavy machine gun and a tank crew commander. As you can see further, and you can take out infantry better. This thing is slow, pretty much a slow boomstick. So what you want to do is you want to support this with the AT guns or infantry and or other tanks, because this thing can definitely get flanked easily, but this thing can also almost one-shot squads. It's pretty amazing. It can fight tigers, king tigers, Jagdpanzer 4s, elephants, you name it. Oh, that shell just disappeared into the world. I don't know what happened just right there, but this thing can literally change the course of the battle if you get one of these. Not sure what just happened there. What is going on? Where are the giant explosion effects that I love to see so much? There we go. Look at that. Nuclear bomb. So this thing is quite a bit of a beast. You can easily beat Axis armor with this. Just support it with a T-34 or two, or maybe some AT guns, and it will definitely decimate anything the Axis can throw at you. Very good late game tank, and allows you to actually take on the Axis armor and win. As you can see, the whole vehicle shakes when it shoots. Pretty crazy huge gun. Let's see. I'm gonna do it again. Well, I guess we missed it. But moving on. Next we have the Infantry Storm, which conscripts, Shrelky, and guards are cheaper to reinforce and may be deployed faster. Conscripts are harder to suppress. Pretty cool little ability. Makes your infantry a lot cheaper. Or not a lot cheaper, but like a few manpower points cheaper to reinforce, which is always good in a game where you're constantly trying to get manpower. Like obviously me, I don't have shit for manpower right now. But nice little bonus ability. Next you have the Heavy Mortar, which is a nice little thing that can allow you to skip tier 2, which I love to do, and you get the Heavy Mortar, which has like a little bit better range than the normal mortar you can get, and it has a lot heavier shells, 107mm instead of your 82, I believe is what we have. Where are you at? Yeah, a little bit bigger, and it's got a lot bigger area effect. Fires a little bit slower, so enemies can escape it a little bit easier, I'd say. But when it does hit, it hits like a fucking bowling ball. It's awesome. Let's see this thing impact. Let's see it impact. Come on. Where you at? Yeah, as you can see, big explosion. Can wipe weapons teams in almost one shot sometimes. Alright, next you have the Breakthrough Artillery, which is amazing. This right side Breakthrough Artillery, if you can use it on the enemy base or somewhere around. Let's see, let's just use it right here. It has like a huge rain of artillery. It has mortars, Katushas, and huge artillery coming in. First the mortars come in, then the Katushas start hitting. As you can see, Katushas coming in, Katushas coming in. Oh, bounced off. Boom, boom, Katushas. And there's the big artillery coming in. Very effective if you can catch like a large amount of enemy infantry in the open or enemy vehicles. And then following it, you also get hit with smoke, so you can push through. Overall, really good thing. Works great combination with your observer teams. Where are they at? Where are my observers at? These guys. Works great with them. So, and also, let's see. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. Yep, it looks like all mortars. So it looks like the good old heavy mortar will also respond to this artillery call. Well, the Su-76. Looks like the Su-76 doesn't give a shit. But still pretty cool regardless. But overall, I'd say for the 3, Breakthrough is definitely my favorite because it allows you to get mortars even with skipping tier 2. Allows you to get shock guards, which you don't even have to go shock strelky to get these PPSHs. And then you have large scale assault and breakthrough artillery, which are 2 super cool abilities and help for actually breaking through. And then to top it all off, you get the ISU-152, which ISU-152 is probably the best Soviet tank at killing other tanks, or anti-tank weapon at least. Compares to the IS-2, but the ISU-152 is my favorite. It takes the cake. Easy to flank, so to be very careful with it, but overall, this is the Soviets. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you take the tips that I gave you and make sure you use them in the games. Make sure you post lots of your replays. Join the Eastern Front Discord. Show off all your battles. And yeah, just start playing Company Heroes Eastern Front. Why haven't you already? But hope you guys enjoyed. Hope to see you guys out there. You guys all have a good day. And goodbye.